Hi everyone. I just wanted to say hello, and we have our next episode of Leadership and Technology Stories of Success. Today we have Melissa Proxenos with us. Melissa has a really fascinating story to tell, from being a bit of a globetrotter and starting off in software engineering. I won't give when you started off in software engineering away. Don't want to give that away, but really fascinating story from starting out in software engineering and then leading up to being a CTO, and now in a global organization, which you'll obviously speak a little bit more about. But Melissa, great to have you within the conversation. How are you?
Hi, Jason. Thank you for having me. I'm doing quite well. Quite excited to have a chat.
Brilliant. And we're in sunny Dublin, sunny Ireland today, I suppose. So finally a bit of good weather. So it's nice to be that little bit positive today. But Melissa, again, thanks again for joining me. I know you're extremely busy with everything ongoing, and it was great to get the opportunity to speak to you. So with every guest, I always open it up with the first question of, what was your first memory, and why did you get into IT, I suppose?
So my journey starts. I would say I fell into IT. So in high school, unfortunately, my parents didn't have a lot of money, so they couldn't actually pay for me to go to university. And my journey started with a university scholarship in STEM. And that's a reason why I'm so passionate about scholarships in STEM. I feel like it gives people the opportunity to join an industry they could never have thought. Ironically, my favorite subjects at school were art and math, and I would never have thought that software engineering is the perfect combination between the two. And yeah, no, just had to work hard, and somebody gave me an opportunity. And here I am. I took it with both hands.
Excellent. So if you're talking, obviously you talk about STEM and you talked about the program and spoke about the program that you're in. So if we're taking it back then, that earliest memory, like was it, like when was the first time you realized, there's an opportunity in coding? What was that first, memory, earliest memory? I know other people I've spoken to, it might be they had a games console and they, pulled that apart. They've always had that inquisitive mind. So like what was it with you that kind of led down the path of software engineering and IT?
Geez, I've been tinkering with computers since I was a kid. So back in the day, we were playing games on DOS before we had Windows. So I've just always liked taking things apart and getting in the consoles. We had floppies back in the day, playing games on those and loading multiple of them to get games on my dad's computer.
Yeah.
So that's when I started tinkering with that kind of thing. The other industry I was looking at was more like the electronic engineering side, but obviously I got uh, a scholarship in IT, and I just absolutely love it. Since the first time we started coding, it's just it's those consistent algorithms that you get in math, where you put stuff together to get an outcome, and you get to be creative, creating games or products that automate stuff. And maybe I'm a bit lazy in the term that I want to automate things. I don't want to just do the same tasks over and over. And I think that's been a big motivation for me, seeing that I have a skill set where I can automate everything.
Excellent. Yeah, no, listen, it's very poignant at the age of AI and everything like that. So I hear you 100%. And again, the words of work smart, it comes to mind. So, but again, you have to work hard first to realize how to work smart. So I'm sure there was probably a lot of times where you were saying, oh, probably should have automated that, and came back to it. But then touching back on like your earliest days and memories, like, so obviously, my accent, but say people would realize I'm from Dublin, 100%. I wouldn't be surprised. But just from yourself, then, like, where had your journey started? And yeah.
So I was born and raised in South Africa. I recently moved to Sydney, Australia, and now I'm here in Ireland.
Wow, that's a journey. That's a journey across the world. Africa, then over to Australia, and then obviously back into Europe. So you've stemmed three continents already. which is, yeah, that's amazing. But then obviously in South Africa, like you're talking about, the STEM was there, the support system was that in South Africa where you got the support of the STEM and let's say women in technology or women in STEM, was that how that program originated, or what was that program?
So the program I got a scholarship in was called ITBLP, so it's a business leadership program. It wasn't necessarily specific to women, even though I think being a woman helped. They really tried to get half women, half men in the program,
Of course.
which is quite rare because in my experience in my industry so far, I've only worked with two female software engineers before. They're
Yeah.
usually the business analysts or the program managers, but
Yes.
really that you'd get a software engineer that's a woman. So it was quite nice to see that they prioritize getting enough women into the program. And most of the people in my program came from very poor backgrounds. There was a time where I had to study by candlelight for my matric exams. So we didn't have other options. And it was kind of this camaraderie within the program that this is all one shot. This is the one opportunity that you got. And you really have to go in. And we had this mindset of no man left behind. And we basically didn't sleep for a year. We did 3 hours of sleep for a whole year each night.
Wow.
And yeah, it was quite a hectic program, but we made it through. Nobody failed our program because
Well
we really
done.
put in the time.
Yeah, no, that's inspiring. That's amazing. And I think, as you said, that I think it goes back even probably to for me, my earliest memories from kind of South Africa would be the rugby team, and when winning the Rugby World Cup, and obviously your whole nation came together, and it was amazing, like to what you've achieved, obviously to win the World Cup. So I'm sure that probably relates. That was probably your World Cup, and your team came together to achieve the goals that you did. So, no, it's inspiring. I love hearing things like that. So then, like within your earliest memory of getting that first job, can you remember landing your first engineering role? Like what was that? How did it come about?
So the company that sponsored me in the program had a guaranteed position as an intern at the end of the program, which was actually quite lucky because I see a lot of students these days that do their 4 years of university or they do their engineering degree, and the market's not always great. It's getting somebody to take somebody straight out of university is quite rare. It's that conundrum of needing the work experience to get the job, but getting the job, you need the work experience.
Yeah.
So we were quite lucky that companies actually invested in us and they paid for our bursaries. And as part of that, we would go work at those companies after we finished our degree.
Excellent. Now, like that's the reason for this whole conversation, and the reason behind the podcast series is about the people getting onto the ladder, the future leaders of our industry, and to get an idea of like people like yourself being a CTO, what you're looking for in the next generation or what you're looking for when you're hiring people. So I think it's extremely important to have those programs where you can give graduates or give people the opportunity, because again, the space that I'm in, and the people that I would place into organizations, they only engage with me because they need people with specialist skills, and they need to have prior experience before, they would engage with me. So when I'm speaking to grads or people with limited experience in a commercial environment, I help and guide as best I can, but it's a very catch-22 situation, because every company wants to move, especially in now the now day and age of AI, etc. Everyone wants to move at an extremely quick pace, and it's about how do we create an environment that the people in the next generations aren't being left behind. So I think that's a really good program. So you went from that program, and it gave you that stepping stone, obviously, into a company. So what did you find when you landed in the software engineering realm? Because you obviously spoke about working with two female engineers. So what was that world of work like, landing into an engineering team?
So the first thing I realized walking into the workforce is you know nothing after university.
Yeah.
Most of what you've learned is usually irrelevant by the time you hit the industry. It's just technology is that fast moving that a lot of the stuff, like how far the Bluetooth range is on a device, it's not true anymore. The stuff that's printed in textbooks. And then the other thing I learned was up until that point, your school and your university gives you this pretty curriculum that is wrapped up in a bow, and they literally spoon feed you the next steps in your career. And you hit the industry, and there's no curriculum, there's no next steps, and the internet is basically what you need to learn. So a lot of people expect leaders and seniors to spoon feed them what they need to do with their career, but it's not up to other people, it's up to you. You need to craft your path. You need to advocate for yourself. You need to basically go, what do I want to do? What role do I want to work towards? And you have to set out your own curriculum. You have to make your own opportunities. You have to network to meet the right people. Nobody's going to do that for you.
No, definitely not. So then in your first role, like were you in that organization for long? How did you progress, within that organization, and then obviously moving on to your next challenge? What did that look like for you?
Yeah, I was lucky enough that I had, throughout my whole career, actually, I was quite lucky enough to have mentors that helped me. And it might just be because I have this thirst for knowledge and learning new things. So I think the best way, instead of making your own mistakes, is to get a mentor. And I had great
And
people
how did
help.
you seek out a mentor? Because a lot of people would hear that, and you read about success stories, or you read about these billionaires or OpenAI founders, and they have these mentors. So, how did you seek out your mentors? Did it come naturally within the companies you're in, or how did your mentors come about? So, it probably a double barrel question. How did you seek them out? Would be kind of the first one, and then the second one would be like identifying them in terms of your journey of mentorship to get to where you wanted to get in your career?
I think the hardest part is with when you're junior is most times it's quicker and easier as a senior to just do the work than to train up a junior person to do the work. But in saying that, I think it's very short-sighted because if you train up another person, you basically multiply how much you can do. And you've got another person with the skill set now, and you're not that key reliant person in the company. With me, it's a lot of some of my mentorships just naturally occurred. Like I'd find somebody that was good at SQL and I'd spend time with them and they'd go give me some tips and I'd just shadow them or review people's code. You learn quite a lot by doing that and asking the right questions. But there were times where I had formal mentorships where it's kind of awkward, but you approach somebody that's in an architect role and you're like, will you mentor me? And the thing about mentorships is, once again, it's not a classroom where somebody's going to come up with a curriculum. The best mentor I had made me teach him. So he would go, these are a bunch of topics I think we should cover for you to get to your next career goal. And at that time, I would say, I want to become an enterprise architect or something. And they're like, okay, these are the things we need to go through. And then we mutually agreed on what goals and what topics to learn. And then I would go research it and present it back to him. And he would ask me questions about it. And it's a very interesting thing that hearing something, reading something, easy, explaining something, very hard.
Yes.
You quickly realize the gaps in the knowledge when you have to teach something to somebody. And I think that was the best approach for me. And maybe I just got lucky, but I got the right people.
Excellent. Yeah, no, that sounds brilliant. And I think, yeah, as you say, it's getting the opportunity to do something. You can learn so much, but I think, as you said, it's getting up there, presenting it back, teaching somebody else. I think that's ingrained. It's giving you those stepping stones to leadership, even if you do or don't notice it. So yeah, I think that's extremely important. And I've been part of hackathons and different situations where people will be coming up with tasks and presentations, from a grad level. And you can just see how great they are because they're just being taught that way. You can see they're going doing the research, they're building something, and then they're going up and presenting it. So even at that, that's scenario is like you're probably going to use that throughout your whole career if you're looking to create companies or a startup, or if you're in front of investors or leadership teams. If you can get that piece from a technical point of view, as well as being able to talk in business terms, you're going to be in an excellent situation. And I think my observation on that is, from doing that, you've then, created your career path even before you even own it. You're getting the skills to develop into like a CTO. So, obviously you're in South Africa. Like, what level did you get to as an engineer within South Africa before you then made the decision to go over to Australia? How did that all come about?
In South Africa, I ended at an architect level where I was working with an international company, and at any given project that we were involved in, I would have to work with teams across 6 different countries. And it was a wonderful opportunity. I worked there for almost 9 years. So a lot of growth within
Yeah,
that company. And we had excellent enterprise architects. The one architect that we had, he literally wrote a book for Microsoft SQL on Microsoft SQL. So I always find it funny when people ask me, where do you rate yourself out of 10 for your SQL skills? That's a hard question because, in comparison to that architect, I would say I'm a 6 in comparison to him. He literally wrote the book.
yeah, exactly. He's the global expert, and you're giving yourself a six. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's all about context as well, isn't it? How you rate yourself.
Yeah. And then I moved to Australia, and at the moment I'm still working with my Australian company where I'm the CTO there.
So
And
what
it
made you go from South Africa to Sydney? What was the plan there?
it was for work opportunities. It's getting being able to operate on the global stage. It's nice, South
Brilliant.
Africa's a lot like Ireland. It's a bit smaller, so getting the opportunity.
Everybody knows everybody.
Correct, yes.
Cool. And then in you went to Sydney, was it that you were in Australia?
Yes, that's correct.
How did you find it over there? Lifestyle, everything. How did you find living and working in Australia?
It's a gorgeous city. It's massive. Uh,
Yes.
it's one of the biggest cities in the world. So you're still in Sydney, but you're still an hour and a half out of the CBD. So just in terms of distance, you understand how big Sydney is.
Yes.
I would say just the city is bigger than some of the provinces in South Africa.
Well, yeah, no, it is. Obviously, Australia, it's a large place, but I'm sure it was a place, a melting pot for innovation and things like that. Were you finding that? Were you doing much networking over in Sydney? Like what were the key things that you really enjoyed, working in Sydney and I've seen that you've been part of groups and I believe women in tech and things like that. So yeah, can you give us maybe a little bit more context then when you landed in Sydney and the things that you enjoyed and achieved while you were in Sydney?
Yeah, so I did quite a few things. I would go to CTO gatherings that were hosted, which was very interesting because you join those groups and it's almost cathartic because you realize the challenges you face every day, it's not just you.
Yeah.
Everybody's actually going through the same things. We're trying to solve the same problems. So I find those kind of groups quite educational in terms of going, okay, and you can soundboard your ideas off of other leaders and other companies and businesses. I think that's excellent. Where I didn't find that kind of opportunities in South Africa weren't as common. You do have some local mentoring sessions, but
Yes.
working with international people. And then I was involved with Women in Tech for the APAC region. What an inspiration at the actual conference last year, at the all of these ministers from like policy makers changing the laws and making changes for the good with AI and with women in tech. It's a whole world out there, and people are doing stuff for medicine, for the greater good in the world. And being able to just being a fly on the wall in that conference is already enough. But then being able to network with those people, they're actually making real differences.
Brilliant. Yeah, no, that's definitely a key highlight from knowing you and obviously speaking with you. So I think to be a part of those, and I think you may have won a couple of awards if I'm not mistaken. I don't want to put you on the spot, but it's great, and your story is inspiring, I'm sure, for everybody, especially women in tech, which again, as you mentioned, is a minority, and hopefully it is going to continue to grow, because over the last 10 years plus it has grown in a number of different areas as well. So what's the most enjoyable parts that you have about your kind of day to day and what you're working on at the moment? What do you find most enjoyable about your role?
I think I really lean into the concept of a growth mindset. It was a terminology that was coined by a psychologist at Stanford.
Yeah.
It's the idea of that you can develop your human abilities, like your talents and your abilities, infinitely. So you're never done. You're never at 10 out of 10 on anything. And I really enjoy solving hard problems and knowing that you can just upskill yourself infinitely. It makes everything possible. And I feel like IT is one of those industries where you're always upskilling, you're always learning, and you're always just becoming a better person. And a lot of it is very human. Um,
Excellent. And sorry to cut across you, Alyssa, what metrics you put into place? Because obviously you have there's probably multiple mindsets, but the two obviously that are probably most in the mainstream is the closed mindset, fixed mindset, and the open mindset. Well, there's three, I suppose. But anyway, yeah. So what would you do to put into that growth mindset? Like, what are the structures that you put in place? Because I'm sure, human nature, from back in the tribal days, we'd probably have a closed mindset in certain things just to protect us. So, is there any particular things you do to develop your growth mindset?
Yeah, I think there's a few key things. It's like changing your attitude towards failure. I actually think failure is a very good way of learning. And in our industry, we believe in failing fast rather than going off on your own mission for 6 months and then realizing you were wrong. You'd rather get that feedback now. So failure is not bad. You seeing it as a setback rather than a permanent failure is kind of like a mind switch you need to make. And then being able to receive feedback. A lot of people aren't always open to feedback. And I think the only way to really learn is to be open to that. Open your ears, listen to people. And, sometimes you have to take it with a pinch of salt and, and not take it personally. But feedback is really, really relevant. You need it. It's the only way to become better. And then I would say the last one is the willingness to take risks. If you're play it too safe, you won't take risks. And I feel like a lot of people don't want to grow because they're comfortable. And getting out of your comfort zone and taking risks is the only way to be better or get to that next step.
Great. Look, creating a podcast. There we go. But no, that's brilliant. That's some great advice, and I think there's a lot of inspiring words that you can take from that, and especially in our industry, you're like fail fast. as you mentioned. So then it's that stepping stone. It's, like the creation of a light bulb. We just found out so many ways not to do it until it was created. And so I think that's extremely important. But again, in society, in my opinion, is like it's about giving people the opportunity to fail and to take those risks. Because I think there's a lot of focus on setbacks or failures in terms of society's outlook if we're looking at maybe the social media side of things. So I think people need to probably step out of that comfort zone, whatever people say or do or whatever, try let those comments or whatever bounce off your back to maybe inspire you, push it on that a little bit further. But I can definitely see the most successful people in life have failed a hell of a lot of times. They just needed that one or two times for it to work and for them to be a success. So that's extremely poignant in what you mentioned there. In way of leaders, what made you become a leader? So, did it come naturally? Did you fall into it? Like what was your leadership journey?
I think leadership is just, we as human beings want to, we want to be with people. So being a lone wolf is not, yeah, some people thrive on that, but I really like working with people. And I've always naturally been a leader in the sense that I'd take control of a situation or come up with, if we in a situation where we need to solve something, I come up with a structured plan. I'm like, okay, these are the steps we're going to take. And people usually fall in line with that or contribute. But I think I'm more passionate about taking people with me on my journey. I'm generally quite ambitious and I want to go places. And when I see people in situations where they don't have opportunities or they can't get out of their situation or uplift themselves economically, that resonates with me. And if that person's willing to work, that's the kind of people that I want to help. I want to take people with me on my journey and share in my success rather than just have it for myself.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think that's another quote or one of out there that is a leader is judged on the leaders that they create. So you sound like a leader that puts the hand down to lift the next person up, which is the leader that I inspire to be as well. So yeah, that's listen, I think that's the right reason to get into leadership, not because I want everyone to see that I'm a leader. So yeah, that's great, really good to hear. And from leaders that inspired you, who are the people that have inspired you or that you look at as, leaders that you'd like to become? Yeah, so who would inspire you?
You wouldn't think so, but I really look up to Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Okay.
He's an astrophysicist, and I think what I like about him is I am personally obsessed with learning new things, and he just makes topics like astrophysics and black holes and parallel universes and stuff that's really complicated math-wise. He makes it accessible to the people. So if I could make software engineering easy for the people or somebody to come into the industry and not find it hard or like, yeah, sorry.
No, it's
it,
okay.
yeah, if I could inspire people to come into our industry and not be intimidated by
Yeah.
the industry, I think that that's something that he does well with his industry, which is quite complex.
Yes, of course. No, yeah, even even you explaining it there, I'm like, yeah, but yeah, very good. It's gone over my head. But as you said, it's people like that that can simplify things and again make, as you said, something like the topics that you just spoke about and black holes and everything around the universe and mathematics that's built around that is can be extremely complicated for certain people. So as you said, if he can simplify and simplify the message, that's good that inspires you, that type of a leader inspires you, and that's what you're trying to implement within your own organization and the outlook outside of that. And then touching on, the the things that inspire you, like so obviously you're living in Sydney, you're in Ireland now, you're a CTO. Like, so like what are the things that like inspire you in the sense of like the likes of books that you would read or any podcast that you'd listen to? Like where do you, get that inspiration from?
I've gone down many podcast holes in my career.
Yeah.
At the moment, I'm really, really enjoying Stephen Bartlett's Diary of a CEO.
Yes, yes, very good.
What What's interesting about him is he goes and gets the best people in the industry, and then he discusses topics like microplastics. He recently had Mr. Beast on the channel talking about YouTubing and the social media that you get the negative feedback and how to deal with it. He had Trevor Noah talking about his anxiety, and he's got neuroscientists talking about how the brain works and why you're tired, and he gets Harvard professors in.
Yeah.
And it's the kind of people that, that question typical they're asked, if you could have dinner with anybody, who would it be? And he just picks all the best people.
Yeah, there you are. You're having your dinner, probably watching them. There we go. Happy days. No, I honestly, yeah, Stephen, like I watch it as if, at the start. I was watching a lot of the Diary of a CEO. It has fell off a small bit, and just through my own doing like any topic or anything he does. You do need a bit of time to listen to it now. So,
Yes.
but if you can, like you just mentioned there, any topic that you're interested in at this stage, he's probably spoken to one of the leaders in that field. So, you can gain a lot of information, a lot of traction. I watch him on the Dragons Den as well. He's extremely interesting in terms of, his profile and what he's done, and which is pretty amazing. And I think what resonates with probably yourself, I can't speak for yourself, but definitely with myself, is he's came from an underprivileged background, and he's made it to the top of what he was doing. I know trolls and people might be saying things about him in terms of saying, oh well, he sold his company and then his company became extremely successful as well after that. Like, but he created the idea and it was a successful company then to be acquired. And then obviously with what he's got, he could have just sat back on a beach somewhere for the rest of his life, but he's still trying to give value back to people, and he's still trying to innovate and disrupt markets and industries that he's trying to get into. So again, for me, Diary of a CEO, yeah, very, very, very good one to listen to. But outside of that, you're here in Ireland now. When did you land here? When did you get over to Ireland?
Fresh off the boat.
Fresh off the boat, lovely. We're usually on the opposite way. We're probably, when you were the one person coming off that boat, we were probably a couple of testing going on it the other way. But anyway, it's great to anyway have that positivity, and especially like a lot of in our news is people are emigrating and young people are doing that. That's just natural in a lot of senses. I know there's a lot of challenges, and which we don't want to go down that rabbit hole. But coming to Ireland, what's your thoughts? Do you like living here at the moment? What's your first thoughts around living in Ireland?
Firstly, it's the same time zone as my family, so I actually get to talk to my family and friends a lot easier. Where
Brilliant.
Australia has a big time zone difference,
Yes.
and I'm actually enjoying the weather more here. It's less extreme. You're not dealing with 50 degrees summers,
You definitely won't be. Well,
and
unless
and
climate change takes over. Other than that, yeah.
and the people are so friendly. I think the culture resonates with me. Just when you're going on a walk, you have to bargain in another 20 minutes because you're going to get into a conversation about the weather.
Yeah, exactly. The sun's out today, and I think everybody's in more of a positive mood. But yeah, I never look at it that point way, because people say Australia, the suns, the beaches, and then people actually don't realize, well, you're 50-degree summers, and best of luck with that. But no, Melissa, I just want to say thanks a million for your time. Your story and what you spoke about is very evident. The start that you get in life isn't, the hand that you get dealt doesn't mean where you're going to go in life, and where, you've achieved and you've reached. You spoke about the growth mindset. You most definitely have the growth mindset, in my opinion, and to go from a software engineer to a CTO, and especially with a minority of females in the industry, getting to be an engineer number one, but to get to CTO, I'm sure you could do the maths, I can't. But no, listen, I just really inspiring, and I think hopefully people will listen and get some, some inspiration from what you spoke about on their journey and the next steps. And I'm sure you'd be open to it, but if people are looking for mentors, not for everybody to reach out to you at once, but I'm sure you'd be open to helping out with programs and with people if they have any questions, because I've had conversations and you've given me your time, so I appreciate that. And wishing you all the best and success and luck living here in Ireland, and we'll obviously talk again soon. So thanks for your time, Melissa.
Thank you, Jason. Thank you so much.
All right. See you now. Bye bye.